We have 15 minutes for questions. So if any of you want to ask a question to our beloved brother, Deacon Harold, please feel free to do so. Any questions to him? If there are any questions coming through the live feed, Radio Maria, please let us know as well. Is there another microphone somewhere? Another microphone? You want to come forward? There's a microphone at the back there.
Thank you, Deacon. Thank you very much. It's a very powerful presentation. My question is, how do we develop the courage for our faith to evangelize? The courage is a step-by-step, practical step-by-step to develop the courage.
Yeah, how do you get the courage to go out there and
Yes.
preach the truth in love? See, people think that in order to profess the faith, you have to have all this degrees and all this knowledge, right? Yeah, I have the degrees, and that's great, but that doesn't mean anything. See, what I'm trying to do is take this knowledge and impart it in a way that's meaningful in people's lives. And all of us are called to do that each in our own way, all right? And what does it say in 1 John 4:16? Perfect love casts out all fear. So we have to love more than be afraid. That means when we love God and we want to share our faith with God, we have to get over the fear, right? Remember, Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. He was so afraid he sweated blood, which actually can't happen. There's a medical doctor in our state of Texas, in city of San Antonio, Texas, who's an expert in that condition. And he told me that you can be so afraid that the blood vessels burst and they come out of the sweat glands. Right? So Jesus was afraid too. But he said, not my will, the Father's will. So we have to learn how to love more than be afraid. I can tell you about fear, brother. When I was working in law enforcement, I was an anti-terrorism expert. I was a police chief, and I had a consulting company where I would go into private businesses and corporations and school districts and universities and do what's called target hardening. Right? So I'd evaluate their processes, procedures, and methods to make them harder targets against violence and terrorism. That was my life. When I was in adoration, the Lord said, I need you to leave to go speak about me. I said, no. Why? Because I'm afraid. Because I was very secure in my job. I was very secure in my career. And God was telling me, I need you to do a different type of threat assessment for souls. And I was afraid. I ain't gonna lie, bro. I was scared. Because I was making a lot of money. I ain't gonna lie. I was doing very well financially. To leave all of that to do this, whole different ball game. But I'll be completely honest with you. How did I get over the fear? And I'll tell you this. It took a year from the day in that adoration chapel until I finally made the decision to leave was a year. And even after 364 days, I still couldn't do it. I knew, just like I'm standing here before you now, brother, I knew that God was calling me to leave to do this. And I still couldn't do it. You know what I said, love casts out all fear? You know how I got doing this right now? I took my wife to dinner. And I said, honey, I don't know about this. She goes, God is calling you to do this. And after all, God's in charge of finances. We should do it. Hold on. Not you should do it. We should do it. She said those words to me, and literally, all of the doubt, all of the fear was gone. Because I knew in that moment, no matter what happened to us from that point forward, she would love me, she would stand by me, she would support me. Her love gave me the courage to follow God's will. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be doing this. So what you have to do is surround yourself with people in your life that are honest with you, but that will help give you the courage to overcome the fear, right? And you also have to, like for example, well, I don't know these master's degrees in these biblical languages, so what? Do what I call fill it with gap time. Those gaps and spaces in your day. For example, a lot of people in the States fill their gap time by listening to political talk radio, politics all the time. I can't stand to be around people like that. You know why? They're angry all the time. I ain't got time for that. So instead of listening to that, how about this? Hey, you know what? What is this thing about indulgences? Isn't that the thing that Luther left the church over? And didn't the church sell indulgences, which it never did, by the way? But instead of listening to this radio station with this secular music, why don't I take 15 to 20 minutes in the car and listen to a great resource from Perusia Media and take that 20 minutes to learn something about my faith I did not know before? Because now you're equipped to better share your faith. Right? I do that all the time. I'm on airplanes and in airports all the time. I'm constantly listening to podcasts. You know why? The more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know. And our faith is like a treasure, huh? You can never exhaust the treasure of our faith. Is that helpful to you, brother? All right, thank you. Oh, come on, we're family now. Don't be afraid. Oh, this lady. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Father. Please.
Yes, you said that the husband is the priest of the family. Now, if the husband is no longer able to be the priest of the family, who becomes the priest in the family?
There is no priest in the family then. That's the problem. Oh, I'm going to bust this wide open on Thursday. Trust me. Trust me. I got to talk specifically geared to that question right there, to answer that question in detail on Thursday. So I could do it now, but if you wait a couple days, I promise you it will be worth it.
Thank you, Pastor. Deacon Harold.
Because
Sorry.
people may think I'm a Protestant if you say pastor, right? so just let everybody know, deacons like myself, we're clergy. We're ordained, right? Now we typically don't wear clericals like the priest with the collar and stuff like that, but so there's bishops, priests, and deacons that are ordained ministries, right? So I'm actually clergy, ordained clergy. So pastor, I think people might think, oh, he's a Protestant, and I'm not.
Thank you.
Nothing against, I love Protestants, yay, but no.
Thank you, Deacon. My name is Consilia. Okay, how would you define this situation here? I see in the church, some leaders in the ministry or different ministries, they really don't want to have a change. They are like, they own it, it's mine. I am a leader, that's my position. Someone not going to be changed. I will be the leader. How would you define this in a spiritual, seeing that kind of situation?
Yeah, I talked about this, that sometimes when we think we're in charge, we hold on to things too tight, we forget who's really in charge, right? It's not your program, it's God's program, all right? It's not, you don't teach RCIA, Jesus teaches RCIA through you. Remember, the whole thing, we're instruments, God's the musician. And we have to become finely tuned instruments in God's hands, right? But I give a very, very quick, very, very short example. I was back before I started traveling and speaking, I was in charge of RCIA in our parish. We had a woman named Michelle who was away from the church for 30 years. She left in her 20s coming back in her 50s. And she wanted to bring, oh, well, can my fiance come? Sure, he can come, but he's atheist. So he's welcome, absolutely, have him come. And Dan came, and for the first 3 months, he said nothing. The whole class. He sat there and looked at me the whole time, but didn't say a word. We take a break for Christmas, we come back in January, and he said, Deacon, can I talk to you? I said, oh, you can talk. I said, what's up? He goes, I want to be Catholic. What? Time out. What? You sat here for 3 months and said nothing, and now you want to be Catholic? He said, you know, he used an American, he goes, it was like Tony the Tiger's nose. You're not familiar with Tony the Tiger, right? It's a big tiger that's on a kid's cereal, right? He asked me, what color was Tony the Tiger's nose? I said, black. He's a tiger, they have black noses. He said, no, bright blue. I'm like, no, get out of here, man. I mean, I was a kid. You know how many boxes of that cereal I ate as a child? The nose is black. He said, nope, it's blue. I said, look, I'm not going to argue with you over this, right? Next time I went to the store, I went down the cereal aisle. The nose was bright blue. So, next time I saw Dan, I said, Dan, I could have swore that the nose was black, but you're right, it was blue. He said this, it was just like my experience with God. He was in front of me the whole time, and I didn't see him. Then he said to me, your class helped me to see Jesus. I said, no, not my class, his class. You know what I teach? I don't teach Deacon Harold Catholicism. I teach the one holy Catholic and apostolic faith that the martyrs died for. In the Eucharistic prayer number 1, the Roman canon, or as we say in the United States, the long one, right? Those beautiful names, Felicity, Perpetua, Lucy, Agnes, Cecilia, Anastasia, they died rather than deny Jesus. They said, we will rape you, we will beat you, we'll cut your breasts off, we do all this stuff. All you have to do is just say no to Jesus. They died rather than deny Jesus. That's the faith that I teach, not my opinion. And Dan, the former atheist, is now on fire for Jesus. Why? Because I learned that I am not the musician, I'm just the instrument. God. I have to evangelize so I can change somebody. You can't change nobody. We ain't that good. Holy Spirit changes minds and hearts and lives, not you. So as soon as that person understands that, then you'll start to see some change. That makes sense? Yeah, thank you.
Good afternoon, Deacon.
Good afternoon.
I'd like to thank you very much for your very inspirational and powerful presentation. I also like to acknowledge the efforts of all those who brought you over here.
Yeah.
I've watched you so many times on EWTN. And,
thank you.
And you get to
Thank
hear
you.
on the U.S. Catholic bishops' reflections.
You watch that too? The U.S. bishops?
Yes. So,
hey, thank you.
So I get to see you in person.
Thank you.
All right, so I just want to make a comment, not a question.
Sure.
And it's an inspiration that I drew from your speech about the idea of covenant.
Yeah.
The world is filled with contracts, but the word is covenant.
Yes.
Me giving myself to you, and you giving myself to me.
Yes.
And I want to go back to the constitution of our country, Papua New Guinea. So you said around the world, there's Poland, there's Philippines, and Papua New Guinea. The opening words of the Constitution, and we have one of the drafters of the Constitution here with us, Grand Chief
Yes.
John Momis. The opening words of the Constitution says, we the people of Papua New Guinea, united in one nation, pay homage to the memory of our ancestors, the source of our strength and origin of our combined heritage, acknowledge the worthy customs and traditional wisdoms of our people, which have come down to us from generation to generation, pledge ourselves, I repeat, pledge ourselves to guard and pass on to those who come after us our noble traditions and the Christian principles that are ours now. Christian principles that are ours now. That is in the Constitution of Papua New Guinea. And the principle that I want to see in our Constitution, based on your talk, is the idea of covenant. The Constitution embodies this idea that the leaders give ourselves to the people, and the people, they give themselves to the leader, so that the Constitution is not a social contract, but it is a living covenant between the people and the elected representatives and the other leaders in our country. So
that's awesome.
It's an inspiration that I broke from you, so I want to thank you, and I'll pray for you, and I encourage you to keep on doing what you're doing, and that you touch so many lives as you go on, and absolutely agree with you that if you hold the rosary, that is your weapon, and that will keep you going the next mile.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, brother. You know, if I had hair, we could be twins. Thank you for that. That was beautiful. Thank you, brother. Here.
Thank you, Deacon. I just heard you say that Jesus is the truth, and the truth is not a word, but is a man, or a being, or a physically man. So can you, explain if the truth is a man, then which can be a very specific, a right way to receive Jesus as a truth or as a man in our life? Thank you, as a Catholic.
Okay. So, like I said, the problem is moral relativism. And moral relativism says that I can define truth for myself. That may be true for you, but that's not true for me. That may be your truth, that's not my truth. I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. That's all moral relativism. See, moral relativism says there is no absolute truth, so truth becomes whatever I decided to be. And when you do that, you take God out of the center of your life and you put yourself there. That's why I said they worship the Trinity of me, myself, and I. Jesus is out of the picture. So truth is not an idea. Truth is not a philosophy. Truth is not something I form in my mind, because the Savior of the world says, I am the way, the truth, and not just any man, Jesus Christ. God himself, the second person of the Trinity, the Word that became flesh and dwelt among us. He is the way, the truth. Not a truth, the truth and the life. That's true whether people want to believe it or not. And so trust me, there are many people out there that don't want to believe anything about truth or anything about Jesus. That's why it's our job to witness to the power of God's love to them. To show them that truth is not just an idea. Truth is not just pages in a book. That Jesus just didn't say it. We have to show people what that means when Jesus says, I am the way, I am the truth. And when you do that, you're going to get attacked. Jesus says, pick up your cross and follow me. What happened when Jesus picked up his cross? People spat on him and kicked him and punched him and mocked him. And the same thing is going to happen to us when we pick up our cross and follow Jesus. They're going to I get called names all the time. You're intolerant. you're closed-minded, you're homophobic, you're a bigot, you don't appreciate diversity, right? And all those things they throw in your face for making you feel guilty about living your Catholic faith. Call me all the names that you want. Sticks and stones, baby. Because at the end of the day, it's just a name. The name that I hold in my heart is not those names they call me. The name I hold in my heart is Jesus Christ. And that is the heart and the center of every of our being and existence is Jesus Christ. So, yeah, don't think of it as just like a man, right? It's God himself who is truth. And even though the world doesn't want to see that truth, they don't want to experience. You know why? Because if they believe in that kind of truth, you have to commit to something. They don't want to commit to anything. That's why we have a lot of guys that get these girls pregnant and leave. They don't want to commit. They turn them into objects, into things, into non-persons. Hit it and quit it, right? That's what they call in the United States. That's not who Jesus, that's not truth. So it's not just enough to say it, we have to witness and live that truth. So people can see that Jesus is the truth. Why? By seeing Jesus in us first. That makes sense, brother? All right. Yeah. About the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist, which I'm going to talk about in the next talk. So I'm going to show without doubt at all that when Jesus said, "This is my body," that he meant it literally. And there's no other interpretation you can make. I'm going to prove that in the next talk. So when I talk about adoration. All right. Is that the answer?
Dear friends, we have come to the conclusion of the first talk. So let us once again express our gratitude and appreciation